Hi, Scotties. I'm excited to share the Collaborative Expert Planning Guide for 2018-2019 with you. I think you're going to be excited by the changes we've made to it. One of the most important changes is that you are only expert planning the readiness TEK, so you don't have to decide anything about the supporting standards anymore. Yes, they are still important. Yes, you still need to teach them, but we're not going to expert plan them. You might need to still have some discussion of them while you're doing your planning and you're thinking about the TEKs you're going to teach for the week, but you are not creating an expert plan for them. We've also removed several things that we think that are no longer necessary because you guys are such experts at doing this. You may still need to discuss some things that are not on this plan, but you don't have to write them out anymore. So let's take a look at it. The top section we've added is for ELAR only. It was hard to decide which TEKs in those performance assessments needed to be expert planned because sometimes there are 19 TEKs for one performance assessment, but some of them are write in cursive, write legibly, monitor reading rate. Those don't need to be expert planned. So here's what we'd like you to do. Paste the performance assessment summary here and discuss it with your team. Which TEKs from the performance assessment must be directly taught? And remember, direct teach can happen whole group or in meaningful small groups. Don't assume that you have to have a mini lesson on everything that you expert plan. You just have to be ready to direct teach it. Which TEKs from the PA are tested? And which TEKs must be expert planned. So if you're thinking about which ones need to be directly taught, either in whole group or small group, which TEKs are tested, those should give you some idea of what you should be expert planning. If you have any questions about that section, since it's new, please let me know. I'll be glad to help you with it. The next section is not different. We took a little bit out, but we didn't add anything in. So you're still going to share the following information with your team, discuss the TEK until everyone is an expert, and rotate reading and math experts every grading period. So the TEKs that you're planning are only readiness. You're doing the key verb. You're still doing the vocabulary and the definition. Your ahas from the specificity, looking for misconceptions in the IFD or click on TEKs or things that you know from teaching this previously. You're going to include an example of a test question from the unit assessment from motivation or STAR. Remember, it needs to be a rigorous test question. And in STAR testing grades, you may want to include more than one type of question just to cover your bases. Also, in testing grades 3 through 5, we also like you to discuss that rationale for the TEK that came with STAR. The collaborative planning is not different. This is the part that you're going to do with your team during planning. So you don't do this part ahead of time. You know, collaboration is so, so important to us. So which key concepts and meaning will be used to teach the TEK? What question stems and teacher questions address the TEK and the key concept? And how will this connect to the big idea of our unit of inquiry? We've changed the bottom part a little bit. We've made it collaborative discussion of instructional strategies. This was the time when you used to share all the ways that you thought we would do this activity in our class. We would use this worksheet or this small group or read this read aloud and ask these questions. And those are great conversations to still have. But we didn't always write those down. We discussed them and they went straight in the lesson plan. So that part came off. And instead, we want you to have a collaborative discussion of instructional strategies. This might be more useful in math than ELAR. There may be sometimes in ELAR where you don't need to do this box. We'll just kind of play that by ear. But in math, we're thinking this box is where we discuss the 500 ways that you can multiply two numbers together and where you have a conversation about which of the 500 ways you're going to teach first. And are you going to let the kids choose which way they want to do on their independent practice? Are you going to make them do a certain way for the first week? This is where you're going to have that discussion. This is so that you make sure that everybody on your team knows all 500 ways to multiply two numbers together, where somebody might just know 499 of them. You're going to make sure everybody's an expert in all 500 ways. So we've made this document very focused, very purposeful. We've taken out a lot. We hope that this uses your time a little more wisely this year, but also we want you to remember that when you're presenting this to your team, you need to present it as if you're having a conversation with a first year teacher who's never taught this TEK before. Don't assume that your team knows and is an expert in a TEK, even if maybe you expert planned it with them last year, or maybe it's a repeating TEK that you're expert planning for the second time. Don't assume that they understand it, because sometimes on our assessments, we realize that we didn't all quite understand the TEK as well as we should have. This is where we take care of that problem. Remember, take your time when you're presenting. Don't rush this process. It's an important process. And this is the time to help make sure that your team is an expert in all things they need to make the kids successful. One more time if you didn't get the code. Have a great Scotty day.